like pretend I am getting my, what is this? Shoulder, my right shoulder to my right knee is like so much effort.
Yeah.
So with the neck curve is so, if I go back to my shoulder, it's like so much effort. But if I tuck my tailbone up by firing my belly down, you know, that muscle, then I would get it up so much faster, like 5 times faster.
Yep.
5 times less effort.
Yep. So this is a great example of distributing the effort, right? So it's not like there's no effort happening in Kwan's system. She's distributing it. So it's no longer, her system is no longer thinking to lift my head is about my head lifting. Lifting my head is actually something lively happening in my pelvis or my feet or wherever it is. It's a distribution of attention. So that's the experience of what we're talking about. That's Kwan's very clear articulation of what we're talking about. Now, in the lesson, you say, well, why didn't I just tell you to lift the tailbone? But then Kwan wouldn't have that sense of, I got that for myself. Okay, now I could be an egotist and I could tell you exactly how to do that, you know, how to engage, you know, and maybe, you know, you go to a gym where someone does tell you exactly how to do something. They've got the glory of the learning. You know, they've told you how to do it, whereas I'm so humble. I'm not actually, but the deliberate vagueness of ATMs is to allow that to emerge and for Kwan to own it. Does that make sense? So you can think, why don't they just tell us? Like, you know, they're fart-assing around and being obscure with their language and their instructions. Well, sometimes we are fart-assing, but we're not actually. We are leaving gaps because that's the learning. That's where the learning happens. And so discovery of the tailbone, if I'd come up and show her the tailbone, and then it's my discovery, and she goes, oh yeah, thanks. And she recognizes that's nice. If she discovers it for herself, that is self-efficacy. There's a risk. There's a risk. Yeah, there is a risk. And that's okay, we come back to it. That's why this training goes on forever. Everybody will get it. Linda. Oh, the box.
It's just having gone to weekly lessons for quite a long time and then maybe having a gap. I always felt that the teacher, when I say is the left, you know, is your left more whatever than the right, there was less scope for learning. There's much more scope for learning if you follow it up each day. And so I used to suffer a bit from the frustration of saying, yes, I can tell my left shoulder's high. Now what do I do? You know, so I just wonder whether in a weekly situation that most people might have, if they're, you know, even if it's weekly,
yeah,
they're not being able to discover as much by this method as you might from a more
intensive.
Well, definitely intensive, but a more, possibly a bit more directive. That's just a question I've got.
There's 2 questions in there. One is intensive and one is directive, and they're 2 different things. Intensive, yes. Immersive, yes. And that's again why this, you know, it's been hard for you to come here for 1, 2, 3 weeks. Our experience is that when you immerse and you're doing, we were doing 3 or 4 ATMs a day. I don't know if I gave you that little heads up yesterday. You will change.
Is it, and
so that's the intensive.
Yeah. But most people don't have.
No, they don't. No, and that's so the weekly is a compromise, and some would argue that it's got its pros as well, because there is a possibility for integration in the 6 days in between the lesson, and that's a good thing too. And so, because you'll all be gagging for a weekend of not being here and just floating around and doing normal life, you know, Saturday and Sunday. So you will need a break. So there is that, you know, the gap between the lessons is really important, just like the pause in an ATM is really important. So which is better? Depends what you want. Now, the second part of the question, being more directive, I've kind of answered that a little bit with Kwan. If I'd told Kwan about her tailbone and robbed her of the opportunity to find it for herself, it's a risk, as Julie said, that she might not find it. that's where, as teachers, we have a great deal of faith in this work. And it's not blind faith, that magic is going to happen. It is actually a deeply held conviction that you are all fabulous and you will discover things that we can't even think about. So it's our faith in your potential that means that we're happy for the risk to happen, because we've developed this confidence. Faith might be a loaded word for you or anybody. We have a confidence in you as individual humans and the potential for you to learn and discover.
And your confidence in the method is as strong for someone who does it not nearly as intensively, that they will be able to learn.
Our confidence is always qualified by people's level of engagement. Yeah. But, I've seen clients where they've had one lesson and that's it, never seen them again. They didn't need or want anything else. There is also in our confidence, there's a great, hopefully, a tolerance for high degree of variability. Yeah. And that, one size does not fit all. And that's the issue with the training program, is that we have to schedule it as if everybody needs the same thing, but of course. So one other comment from the reflection discussion? Anything else need to be said? Anna?
Just going to expand on that because it's kind of related, because I have a tendency to want to, like say on a computer, if it's something new, if someone just shows me straight away and I do it, and I'll pick it up really quick rather than spending heaps of time trying to figure it out myself. And I think I've been doing the same thing with Baldi. And because I got a bad headache yesterday, I was kind of like, I wish I'd just, been shown an easy way to do it or something. But this morning I was like, okay, well, that's the feedback. There's other reasons maybe why I had a headache as well, but that's the feedback. So today I was like, I went much more slowly, more gently. I didn't get my pelvis thing, that wasn't really part of my experience. But yeah, I adjusted it to be much more subtle and slow, which was great, because normally I want to do it kind of a bit faster and get it quicker. So it kind of, ties in. And because here, I guess we are getting the learning experience. We're not like in a class where we might get a little bit more maybe feedback.
Yeah.
So I'm getting that whole thing you just talked about, the loop as an experience.
Yeah. And so it comes back to what's the intention of the lesson. Is the intention that you get your elbow to your knee? I couldn't give a shit. I don't care. It's that, you might think that that's the point of the lesson, is to get your elbow to the knee. The point of the lesson is, are you learning how to discover stuff? Are you learning how to learn? That's the point of the lesson. I remember somebody, was it maybe in the downstairs training? And I don't know, I was teaching them in July last year. And they said, it's not about the movement, is it? I went, no, it's not. But it is and it isn't. The movement is the vehicle for the learning and the discovery. And is the key thing to discover your tailbone? Well, it was for Kwan. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's, it is for you. But who am I to say what you need to learn? And when Jenny said we're not teachers, she's right. We are not teachers. We are here to create this environment and give you these sort of ideas for exploration that you figure it out for yourself. Now, that's not an intellectual figuring it necessarily either. So you're totally spot on. And, there's a technical word for guidance learning, like having somebody sit down next to you at a computer and show you what to do. Guidance learning is very quick. It's the copy me learning. It's very quick. Innumerable experiments to show it's quick and dirty learning, because I will do it like you do it. Now, from a movement point of view, if I learn to move by what you tell me to do, I'll learn to move like you. Is that the best for me? Probably not, because you're built much more nicely than I am, and you're a little bit younger. Yeah.
Like it seems to me that it's a kind of a balance between the two of what you're doing and what the other bottom price practitioners have come across to. Like, as you'll mention, what's happening with your pelvis or what's happening with your feet. And that's like a little signpost.
It is a signpost, exactly.
Yeah? But you're not filling in the gaps.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, it's enough signposts so that we tap slightly into it, because we don't want you flat. It's not a free-for-all on the floor. It's not just rolling around exploring every possible degree of freedom in every joint. There is a structure to the lesson. There is an intention of possibilities, but it's a broader thing than, say, a gym class where form, you know, there is the right form and there's the wrong form, which is great. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's a different paradigm, that's all. And here, I think the word signpost is really appropriate. It's a guide as opposed to a directive. Cup of tea time? 20 minutes? 15, 20? What's the room's